than it is to heal.
You spend 1 hour a day on 8 different things. Marketing, customer support, whatever it is. So now you decide you're going to be smart. You go, man, 8 hours a day, I'm doing 1 hour on these 8 things. It's eating up my whole day. I have no time to plan and do new things. So you go, let me hire 8 people. So you hire 8 people. Or let's say you hire 7 people and you're the 8th. So you the day's going to be great. You're going to wake up, you're going to do your 1 hour worth of work, and everyone else is going to do their 1 hour worth of work, right? That's not what happens. What Parkinson's law predicts, it's a business term, is that people will fill up their time. If you give them 1 hour worth of work, but you pay them for 8 hours, they will make it slower so that they get paid for their whole 8 hours. It's called loss of productivity. That's what productivity means. By the way, that's the only thing the U.S. has to do to fix the entire economy. It has nothing to do with all this bullshit that all politicians talk about. They're all full of shit. Every single one of them. The way you make America more productive is you avoid Parkinson's disease. America has 330 million people. If every single person in America was twice as productive, and remember, most people aren't productive at all. They're a drain on society. If everybody was just twice as productive, remember, Elon Musk is 1,000 times more productive than you and I. But I'm just asking people to be twice as good. Then America's GDP would go from 15 trillion to 30 trillion. Tax receipts would go from 3 trillion to 6 trillion. Without raising the tax rate, you wouldn't have to increase taxes on anybody, the rich or the poor. Now you'd have 6 trillion in taxes, and our budget, we wouldn't have any deficit. We wouldn't lose money. We only spend like 4 or 5 trillion. We take in, I think, 3 or 4 trillion, and we spend like 6 trillion. So we're going in debt. That's why we'd be going, depending on the year. But if Americans were more productive, right, the same 30 million people were more productive, guess what would happen? You'd have more money in the total pie to tax. So you wouldn't raise tax rate. That's why I said GDP would go to 30 trillion instead of 15 trillion. If you take, on average, let's say the average tax rate is about 25%, you'd raise 7 trillion, and it would pay for everything. New roads, Obamacare, or whatever healthcare, it's all solvable by one thing: become productive, and people ain't fucking productive. So when you hire those 8 people for you, what they'll do is they'll go, well, it's 9 to 5. I really have a 1 hour job, but I'll just slowly space that shit out. Now, they won't even think of it. It's a subconscious thing that goes on in humans' brains. Most people are lazy. Promise you. The amount of people that I know that aren't lazy is so, I won't even say it on this. I don't want to insult anybody at this table. It's so low, it's beyond low. And here's where people are lazy. They won't think creatively for you. So they work with you. Any problem they encounter is like a brick wall. You're like, hey, can you run down the store and I need a tripod for film equipment. Can you go to Sammy's camera? That employee will go down. They know they're getting paid. No, drive back. Sammy's didn't have a tripod, so zero creativity. You'll be like, did you go to the other store next door to it? Oh, no, you didn't say to do that. You just said to go to Sammy's. Well, you're not a robot. You get the point I was saying. Try Sammy's. If they don't have it, go somewhere else. That's creativity. So people are, mentally lazy, and this is by far the most. When we think of laziness, we think of people who, won't take a shovel and dig a hole when you're digging a hole, and so they're like physically.
Double kill!
And it's a little bit of physical laziness, but for the most part, people are so mentally lazy. I'll give you a test to test on your friends. Bring up something that's important, but nobody knows in the room. Watch and just time this. How long till somebody reaches their phone to start Googling it? You know why people don't do that? They're lazy.
Double kill!
I wrote an article many years ago called The Bouncer of the Brain. Your brain tries to conserve glucose. Back in history, it was very hard to get glucose, sugar, and carbohydrates for your brain. So ancient times, you know what most of our ancestors did? Literally, they laid around all the time. They've done studies of nomadic tribes. They spend most of their time laying around. They forage for food about 3 hours a day, and the rest of the time they lay around because they have to conserve energy because they can't get enough calories. I think the average, Dr. David Buss did some research, the average person, there's a tribe in Tanzania, Africa, called the Hanzas or something. I forget the exact name, but they only eat about 1,600 calories a day. They can't get any more. So if you could only get 1,600 calories, that's not a lot of calories, especially for a grown man. Most grown men need you know, let's say 2,000 at the minimum. So those people, so we descend, our great-great-great-grandparents were physically lazy most of the time. And then when they had to hunt something, they'd run real fast because they didn't have a lot of prosperity in the world. Now it's prosperity. Now look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. He ate a lot of food that didn't exist thousands of years ago, grocery stores like that, so he was able to get way bigger, way stronger. Same with the brain. We have all the tools we need. Every employee you hire is going to try to mentally leech you. Trust me. They are, I don't care if they have a PhD. I've never seen an exception to this rule. Not once, ever. The only time I see exceptions is top entrepreneurs that I know that are like, you want to start a business together. Those guys get it because that's why they're made $100 million. Anybody else is lost. The world doesn't teach them this. Nobody teaches this. Has anybody here gone through the school system ever heard this conversation about mental leaching, energy drains, glucose conservation of the brain? Zero. Every fucking school system. The older I get, the more I learn, the more I rage against the system. It's even worse than I thought. So what you have to do with Parkinson's syndrome is you have to automatically assume people are going to be mentally lazy. You give them a task that's only taking 1 hour a day, and you give them free reign, they're not going to literally be lazy. They're just going to go way slower than they should. They're going to do the job, but then it'll be messed up, and you have to talk to them 10 times in a row. Can you fix it? Can you fix it? Can you fix it? They won't see the big picture. They won't be there. So here's the solution.
Mission complete.
There's 3 solutions. 3-step solution to this. Number 1, always assume